The North America Radical Cup is a very popular addition to any motorsport schedule. We sat down with Jon Field, Jordan Missig and Chris McMurry to discuss why Radical Cup has become so popular with both the drivers and the spectators. First of all, there are several one-make series. Why did you guys choose Radical?
Well, I chose Radical because I joined Apex Motor Club in Phoenix, and everybody there was buying the Radical 1340 so that we could race on weekends from October to May, which we do every year. And, as is typical in racing, one thing leads to another, and here we are at the Radical North America Cup, and over the winter I ended up doing the Asian Le Mans Series and LMP2, and here we go again.
So likewise for me, to Chris, I became a member at Audubon Country Club and raced go-karts out there, and then the next step up was either go to a Spec Miata or like a GT car. Well, Team Strudali had a Radical series there, and I decided to get into a Radical because that was something I wanted to go to. I wanted to go more prototype or downforce racing. So, and not only that, but just the Radical itself mimicked what it felt like being in the go-kart so much, very to a T. And that go-kart training and driving in the go-kart really helped me prevail into a Radical. And then from there, the Radical training has just helped me, grew up into the professional racer in that sense. So the Radical series itself it's a great car if you want to go prototype racing or even open wheel racing.
Yeah, for me, we had just gotten away from the P1 costs in American Le Mans. It was just getting prohibitive. You couldn't do it, and for me anyway. And just started researching the Radical. Went down to Atlanta Motorsports Park and just drove the little P1, I guess they call them, and had a blast. And then I just started, wow, at that point the 8 was really popular, and I said, well, let's try that. And I was just, this is perfect. I love it. It's great racing.
How would you describe the car's handling to someone who's a keen driver but maybe has only just done a few track days or something like that?
I think the Radical itself is a great learning car, from beginners who are just getting into racing for the very first time to kids who are coming out of karting who want to get into motorsports and driving cars. It's set up for both ways. I mentioned, it drives exactly similar to like a go-kart does, or whether it's from a K100 to a 206 4-stroke, or if you're a guy who's running into racing for the very first time, the car is set up understeer-wise from the factory itself. So it's a very easy car to drive, and it's very forgiving. You can overdrive it just a little bit there, and it forgives you in very different aspects and different ways. But it's a great learning tool to get somebody who's never gone from racing a car and wants to get into racing for the very first time to, want to get their feet wet and race at famous tracks like Laguna Seca or even at Road America.
Yeah, I would just add to what was said. There's a little bit of a ladder system. You got the 1340, the 1500, and the SR10, and it's a nice progression. 1340 is a great car to start in. It'll really never get away from you. And so, if somebody's looking for, a way to get involved and drive something that is pretty easy to drive. It's not easy to drive fast, but it's very easy to drive the first time. In fact, there's a lot of people out at Apex. They've sold 125 Radicals out there, and most of them are 1340s, and everybody who gets out of it the first time is in love with it and wants to keep doing it.
For me, just coming out of the P1 that had 800 horsepower and getting to the Platinum car here that's got 425, there's really no difference driving. You have to manhandle the car. We had to do that in the P1s. You had to stay committed to a perfect line to go fast. You have, the tire to weight to horsepower is really well balanced. So there's really, you learn, you have a lot of skills to go fast, and you can perfect them and make yourself better if you're going to move to a higher series. So for me, I love it. It's a great car, and it's well designed and well to run.
Right, Sebring, Barber, Road America, Laguna Seca, Toronto, Sonoma. Which is the most demanding track on the schedule?
Depends on who you're asking. No, I'd say probably the most demanding track is probably a tie between going to be Toronto and Laguna here. Laguna is obviously a lot more physical given the undulation and the, camber and embankment curves, that compression corners that we have here. So it's really hard. The steering wheel gets very heavy in some corners. You can even say Barbers are up in there as well. But I think Toronto is going to be a track that's going to be very mentally draining to some of the drivers, just because, you know, you're racing on a street circuit, and it's a circuit that most guys don't get to race at unless you're there. And the walls are also close too. So keeping in mind of like all the different variables that could go wrong at Toronto, I think is what's going to be key in mind of what all these guys are going to be thinking about the entire time.
And it might rain in Toronto. Who knows? Just for some extra fun. Yeah, I think Toronto's probably going to be the most mentally demanding because the mistakes are going to be costly. And I think I don't know, have you guys raced at Sonoma yet in these cars?
One time, yeah.
You have? Yeah, I'll be curious what you think about that. I've not done it in Sonoma yet, so I'm sort of imagining that to be fairly demanding. But like it was said, Laguna Seca is like, my back's sore. I've been on the massage table like 3 times already, and that hasn't happened in any other track so far this year. So.
Yeah, I would say these guys are dead on right. I mean, Toronto, just to be at the front in each of these classes, you're really going to have to take care of the car, keep it off the walls. Last year it rained, which really threw a curveball into it. But again, like Chris said, Sonoma is a very demanding track. They're all fun to me. I love them all, so it's just part of the challenge. Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the cars themselves a bit more. How much can you change on them? Yeah, regard this as like a Radical 101. What can you do to them to tailor them to your tastes?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of things you change, the spring rate, the front bars, the air pressure, wing, you change a lot of things, but I mean, this car is so well balanced. We go back to high downforce, and pretty much we might change, here we stiffened the bar because of the new track, but it's a car you can do a lot of different things. I know there's a couple other teams in the Platin running less downforce than us, but I always go back to downforce so you can drive it hard. Yep.
Yeah, with this car, like John was saying, you can change different bar settings, change different tensions with the springs and everything. But the main thing too is, like he was mentioning with downforce, we could add dive planes to the cars. You can take dive planes off to reduce downforce. You can also adjust the wing angle as well. There's 2 actually elements of the wing angle you can adjust. There's a main plane wing angle that adjusts for a lot more drastic aero change, and then there's a secondary flap that we can change as well, which kind of does a little bit of a minor tweak, but it allows for more aero adjustment to have the rear be a little bit more stable in the rear, or you want it to be a little bit more free in the rear. So there's a bunch of different changes from bar settings, rebound settings, with shock adjustments that we can also do that change from car to car, or even just from track to track that we go to. So each weekend's totally different. Some tracks you can mimic setup in different ways, but when we come to a track and we unload off the trucks in some of these areas or different tracks, we're constantly tuning on these cars just because they're constantly changing after every session with the way the track's changing.
Yeah, I would just add a little story to that. I mean, everything they said is same deal that we experience. And that is that in the first session, FP1, I think our best time was 27.3, and we really made a wholesale change, and we dropped it to 26.3. I really don't feel like, honestly, the driving was not much different. Maybe the driving got slightly better, but the changes were huge. So, there is never a time. I mean, there really isn't a session where we go back out where we haven't changed something from the last session, even for the race. We anticipated that it'd be cooling down a little bit. We made a couple changes, and we were quicker today in the second race versus the first race.
And do you set the cars up differently for qualifying and race, or is it just dump the fuel and run?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say that most of the time, what I qualify in is what I want to race in, because it's what I know. I mean, I don't want to go into a race and do something different, but I will say that in this race, the second race, we made some changes. And we were able to run mid-26s versus this morning, I think we were around mid-27s. So it was a little bit cooler this afternoon, but the changes made a big difference.
The nature of the hand-cooked tires, are they the kind of tires that just stay a constant level of grip, or do they have a high peak and then you spend the race managing them to the end?
The hand cooks do have a peak. And I would say it's anywhere between around lap 3 to lap 6 is probably like their peak. After that, they do fall off but just marginally. Like they're probably within 2 to 3 tenths of that peak time, and then they're consistently there throughout the duration of like the whole race. They may fall off a little bit more, especially if pressures start to get higher and get past that threshold, and then they start to become pretty greasy. But for the most part, the tire is very consistent. You know, the balance of the cars really don't change that much. It's pretty much the exact same all the way through. When you come to a place like Laguna Seca, especially with the old asphalt, you know, you might get a lot of tire degradation that was here, and here the balance of the car changed quite a bit. But really, since the repave, you really haven't felt much tire degradation or change, especially when we go to tracks like Sebring, Barber, or even at Road America.
I'll just add to that when I first got the Radical, that was the number one thing that I noticed was how long the tires lasted. Obviously, it wasn't running the car as quick as it could go, but I think when you think about the Radical from a track day car perspective, and you put the Hancooks on it, particularly for guys who aren't running the car at its absolute maximum, I mean, you could probably run 15 sessions in a 1340 on these tires, and if you're still learning, you're not really going to notice much of a difference.
Okay, well, that's interesting. So I was going to ask about the brakes. Let's give it to you, John. The brakes, how often do you have to change pads and rotors?
We change them quite often. I mean, I'll try different compounds of brakes and different.
Oh, you're given that latitude
we play with
to
that.
change.
Yeah, I mean that
Right.
is one thing. I mean, on the Platinum car, we're going a little faster than these guys, so when we use them up, I mean, you know, you want a good brake. Today, my brake pedal was going soft. You use it in not many corners, but the 3 you do use it, and you use it. And so, yeah, but the brakes pretty darn good, you know, I mean, you can stop the car. You got to play with the bias quite a bit to keep from locking up. So I always keep working on that throughout the race, making it better.
Oh, that's good. I mean, are there any tracks where your car, maybe yours won't, but where your car does reach, you know, maximum speed? And if so, what is that figure?
I mean, it's probably Road America, right? So the 1340, we were hitting 139 going into Canada Corner. That was our top speed.
Yeah, in the 1500s, it's just a little bit more power to it. So not drastically a lot different, but we're probably hitting around 143, 144 at the top end. And it's really just because we have a little bit more pep just on the throttle application on the exit of corners.
Yeah, we were hitting them 170 there. Yeah. I mean, it stretches the legs there at Road America, which is great.
Do you actually get a slipstream effect from this car at all?
Yeah, I think any time there's somebody blocking the wind in front of you, it's going to, whether it's biking or running or anything. So obviously in this car, it doesn't shoot you out. But I mean, I'm always behind somebody when I go to pass them, so I'm doing everything I can. But it's not a draft. It's not like a Formula Ford or something like that.
Yeah, we were experiencing it a lot at Sebring and at Road America. When you get in a draft behind somebody, all the turbulent air that gets thrown at you, your head kind of starts feeling like it's a little bobblehead, and it's just kind of moving around all the way. And it's like the vision just starts getting a little shaky and everything like that. Your head just starts bobbing around, so it gets a little hard to concentrate a little bit, especially with all the movement that's happening. But yeah, no, it's definitely you can feel the turbulent air, and especially like when you go to tracks like Barber, even here, sometimes you can feel the dirty air effect that, you know, an aero wash effect that these cars have. So there is a little bit of that you have to play with. So you do have to search around for a little bit of air, but that's all part of downforce racing. You know, you go into Formula car racing or even LMP racing, you know, you're going to deal with different downforce levels, and you're going to deal with the aero wash. That's just part of the game.
Do you get sucked along by the faster cars?
Oh yeah, at the start, I'm always trying to jump the start, so I can hang with these guys down to the first corner. But yeah, I mean, like for perspective, I think like at Laguna, if you come out of turn 11, the last corner, and you're right behind somebody, you can get up alongside them before you get to turn 2. And at Road America, I'd say you could get alongside somebody and actually execute the pass and pull in front of them on the front straightaway. So that's just sort of like some perspective for what kind of draft, at least I was feeling in the 1340.
Right, let's talk about driving etiquette. Is it like IndyCar where you aren't allowed to move in reaction to the guy chasing you, or is it like Formula One where you're allowed to make at least one move and pretend it's?
To be honest, I think the biggest challenge related to the topic of multi-class racing here is that, you know, the if you imagine each of the three classes, and there's sort of a front group in that class, and then there's a second group in that class, and inevitably the class that's behind the fast guys there are getting intermingled with the slower guys in the next class, and it happens in every single class. Interestingly enough, we had a discussion about etiquette in the drivers' meeting this weekend, because Road America, we had as an example, we had a 1500 who was like fighting with the 1340 leaders. We had a pack of 4 1340s all fighting, and a 1500 mixed in. So it's part of the deal here, because you got some guys who are experienced drivers, and you have people who are coming here to learn how to drive and sort of take the next step. So it's just something that you deal with here that's a little bit different, I think, from the multi-class experience that you would have like in the American Le Mans Series, where the LMP1, everybody in that class is faster than everybody in the LMP2. Everybody in LMP2 is faster than the GT cars. And so I think the traffic's a little bit easier to deal with at that level versus something like this.
Yeah, and it also depends on like which tracks we go to. Like, for instance, Road America with the SR10s versus 1500s, there was no point in defending at all down a straightaway on an SR10, because they're just going to blow the doors off you no matter what. When you come to a track like Laguna Seca or even Sonoma, the 1500s are going to be intermixed with the SR10. So, there's areas to kind of defend, to kind of keep us positioned, because there are some areas where the SR10s slow the 1500 series down, and it backs us all up back into each other. And, obviously we want to pull away from each other in that sense. So it's just picking your battles, picking your choosing, and picking the right moments and when to make your move to get around some of these guys is very crucial. And it's sometimes what makes or breaks, a race win versus finishing P3 or P4 off the podium. So it's just picking your battles is really the key that goes into it.
This is a bad question to ask John, because he's always in the SR10 and he's always leading the race. So do you ever see traffic?
No, but what's great about multi-class racing is, like I watch these guys. I try to be aware, because I'm in a faster car. I try to respect they're racing hard, in their individual classes. But when they're racing against somebody, that can be an advantage or disadvantage, how they get through traffic. So it really shows the driver's skill, if he can place a gap because of the traffic. And so I've always loved multi-class racing. It's always been fun for me. But yeah, it's all fun.
Are we saying that the drivers generally behave themselves, or do they bend the rules?
Except me, right?
I am very proud of you. I remember the American Le Mans Series, and I have to say that you've grown up a bit. I don't know. I mean, for the most part, I think people behave. I mean, honestly, I wasn't happy with the behavior at Road America, but I would say at this track, I've been around 1500s all weekend, and it's been good. There's been times where they were finally catching me, and I could see that they were going to be a little quicker, so I just let them go by. And there's other times where I go ahead and fight as hard as I can, because it doesn't really look like if they get in front of me, they're probably going to slow me down. So, but this weekend I would say it's been pretty good, and generally overall it's, I'd kind of give it a B. I don't know if there's any A's in driver etiquette in any race series.
Yeah, I mean, it's always tough, especially with us. We're some of the experienced 1500 guys up at the front. We're driving these things to the absolute limit that they're given, and when we kind of get intertwined with each other, we're all within like seconds of each other, and we're all within like a train. And then when you get up to an SR10, you don't want to be the jerk to just shove it down the inside, but you almost kind of have to in that sense. And you don't want to make like rub off bad, saying we're not driving over our heads, or we're just trying to be the bad guy out here, but it's just how we're going to be able to do it. It's like you either take the move and do it, or you're going to get beaten up and go into getting pressure going into the next corner. So it's like we said, it's just picking your battles and choosing to make smart moves and everything. And the more smarter you can make your moves, the more friendly everyone's going to be around here. It's just the time when you try to get really over aggressive and over your head is when you're going to start causing issues around here.
You have had plenty of experience of racing, and how would you judge the driving standards here, and how the authorities kind of like control anyone that's kind of like out of line at all?
I've never been one to talk about people. That's just not my deal. I've raced for 30 years. When I was in American Le Mans, I never had confrontation. I just wouldn't go there. And I was always do it on the track, show them how you drive. And, we have great stewards. These guys do a great job of teaching. If they don't have experience, they're telling them, watch your mirrors. There's really not good answer. Did you know he's there, or did you not know he was there? There's no good answer. So this is a great series. So I think all the drivers are great. I mean, it's a family here, and everybody respects it. That's why I like it here.
Can I add something to that, John? Yeah. I just wanted to say that the other thing that's worth mentioning is I feel like the race officials in this series let us fight. And we can have a little contact, we can dive-bomb, we can really fight, elbows out. It's all within reason, but I've raced another series where if you just touch another car, it's a penalty. And here I don't think there's a race that goes where there's probably not a little touching going on, and it's honestly kind of nice.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, final question then. If you were selling the series to a driver who was considering, various one-mate series, how would you convince him or her that the Radical Cup is the place to be?
I think it honestly just boils down to the safety aspect. The car itself it's like a tank. We've yet to have like a true major incident to where we've ever had, anybody really injured or hurt in a sense. So, and to Chris's point, it's a series where it's like a full contact sport. We can be out there fighting, rubbing fenders against each other, and the cars are not open wheel cars. They're sports cars. They got a closed wheel, and we can actually rub up against each other and have a little battle with each other. So, but it proves to the safety of the cars itself that, they've been through basically a lot, and we put them to the test, through different crashes that we've been through or different scenarios, and they pull through. I went many years ago, raced at Barber, got into a huge accident, and basically had a broken chassis. And the car made it the rest of the way. I finished 6th in that race after having a broken chassis. And the car was basically undrivable. Like, I was losing in every single corner, but just hanging on to the thing, and it was persevering all the way through. And, it just shows a true testament of what the car's capability is about. So, if it's any good series, the number one thing in racing is all about safety. And I think, Radical sets their safety bar at a very high level.
I would say that cost is a factor, right? So racing's expensive, and it's difficult from that standpoint. And I think given the performance level of these cars relative to the open wheel series that perform at a similar level, this is more affordable. And one of the things that started to happen in this series is there's a number of really young people in the series. I think we've got 4, 5, 6 guys in the 1500 that are all young. I'm battling for the championship with a couple of young guys, and so I think the combination of safety and cost and more youth coming into the series is probably going to attract more youth, which John and I are kind of looking forward to.
Well, for me, yeah, it's got to be financial for sure. Right. And then you have to look at every class. The leaders in those classes are fast guys. So they're going to be able to, learn their craft better and move on to another series. But it's good, hard racing. So that's why I say you got 30 to 35 cars in every race. It's, where do you see that in many series where you have really competitive drivers? So for me, it's a pretty easy sell to somebody that's been playing around in some of the other series.
Right. So it's definitely not just a stepping stone series. It can be a destination series as well.
I'd say it could be a mixture of both, actually. For like Chris and John, who have raced for many, many years and, have raced for so long, it's a way for them to keep racing and a way for them to have fun and be able to rekindle like the racing atmosphere that they've been able to have. For guys like myself and a bunch of other guys who come out of go-karts, this is a ladder series that we can say as a stepping stone that's not going to break the budget. You look at like Chris was mentioning, the Junior Formula Series getting up into IndyCar ladder, you're looking at words to, let's say, $400,000 to $600,000. A Radical Series is probably half that. for a whole year, if that, or even a quarter. So, and you get to race at marquee tracks like Sebring, Barber, Road America, Laguna Seca, Toronto, and Sonoma. I know I just named the schedule there, but like 4 of those races are with IndyCar. You know, we're here with IndyCar events, and you get to not only see the best of the best in open wheel racing, but you're also, you know, able to connect with people. You're also able to network. It's a great opportunity to kind of be able to meet new people, walk the paddock, get to see what it's like being in an actual professional racing series. And then we have obviously your marquee tracks that we're all going to around the country in the United States. So they're just bucket list tracks that are always on the schedule, and they're just reasons why I don't know why you wouldn't want to get involved with it.
I don't know why you wouldn't want to be involved. That's a good conclusion. Perfect. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. That was good stuff.
Awesome.